Alright, relate. So the movie begins in ancient Greece, where a narrator is telling us about the golden age of Jujutsu. The golden age of heroes. He was talking about the golden age of heroes. But then he gets interrupted by the muses, the goddesses of the arts and proclaimers of heroes. And in this movie, they tell us about the story through singing, like any other Disney movie. So they begin to sing about the tale of Zeus and the Titans. Basically, in the early stages of the world, Titans roamed the earth, causing chaos and spreading terror. But then the king of the gods, Zeus, came along with his lightning bolts and successfully defeated and locked up the Titans. And then came a time of peace on both Earth and Mount Olympus, which was basically the Greek version of heaven. So we fast forward a couple millennia after the fall of the Titans, and the king of the gods had a baby boy named Hercules. Isn't that beautiful? They was having the gods version of a baby shower, and all the gods were there. I see Hermes, Hera, Aphrodite, and shockingly Narcissus. And I didn't know why they chose to make him a god in this movie, because from the story I know, he was an ordinary mortal who was so beautiful. Yes, he was so beautiful that God cares to gaze upon himself and fall in love with himself, hence the word narcissist. And yeah, I can't lie, I'm a huge Greek mythology fan and nerd, so I can't help myself by yap. And also, God of War 1 to 3 are my favorite games of all time, so forgive me if I start rambling sometimes. But anyways, the party goes on and Zeus thanks the other gods for all their gifts and then proceeds to make a Pegasus for Hercules named, well, Pegasus. But then the party gets crushed by Hades, the Greek god of the underworld. Bro was over here aura farming before uttering some utter bullshit that made everyone give him the look of doom and despair. He walks around over to Hercules and tries to get him to suck on this spiky toy, like, gang, what the fuck? Hercules instead broke his finger because of his incredible strength and just giggled. Zeus then asked him to join in their celebration, but Hades tells him that unlike the rest of them, he actually has a full-time viewer discretion is advised. Ciao.
Jesus Christ. You need to leave.
Ruling over the dead and running the underworld, a tax which was forced upon him by his younger brother Zeus. Yep, for those of you who don't know Greek mythology, Hades and Poseidon are actually big brothers of Zeus. Zeus then makes a joke about him working himself to death, which made all the other gods bust out laughing. And yeah, this was kind of funny, not gonna lie. Hades then makes his way back to the underworld, where we get introduced to the Cerberus, the river of death, and then his two minions, Pain and Panic. He then goes on to meet the Sisters of Fate, which were these three goddesses that could see into anyone's future and could change their fate, kinda. And in God of War 2, Kratos goes to meet them so he could time travel. You know what? Doesn't matter, I'm just rambling. In this movie, they were also in charge of cutting the thread of life, which ends up killing mortals. Hades approached them, telling them he was sorry for being, but they interrupted him and said they already knew that he would be late because they could see into the future. They have this whole segment where they kept interrupting Hades from completing his sentences because they already knew what he was about to say, which ended up rage-baiting Hades over and over again. This one was mad funny, not gonna lie. Now, Hades was mad at Zeus for forcing him to work in the underworld, which was understandable because he's the older brother and feels like he should have been the ruler of all the other gods. So he was devising a plan to free the Titans and wage war on Olympus in order to defeat Zeus and rule all. And the reason he was meeting up with the Fates was to know whether or not Hercules would mess up with his plans. The Fates initially didn't want to tell him, but bro raises them up, kinda. And can I just say, this movie's version of the Fates were chopped as hell. Holy shit, bro. The God of War versions were actually kind of fun shit. I'm gonna keep it a beam. Anyways, they reveal that in 18 years the planets will align and this will be the time to act and free the Titans and then wage war on Olympus. And if this happens, Zeus will fall and Hades will rule all. Wait, this is kind of bars. Hades then gets excited, but then they warn him that should Hercules join the fight, Hades will fail before taking their leave. Hades gets infuriated, but then comes down and walks into a room, asking Pain and Panic how to kill a god. Pain answers that you can't because they are immortal, and Hades tells them that that was true. So first, you gotta turn them mortal while holding this potion, which I'm guessing was gonna do just that. So later that night, they snuck into Olympus and stole baby Hercules. Weak ass security, bro. They then begin feeding him the potion, but then gets interrupted by this old couple. So they drop the bottle and the last drop goes wasted. The couple picks up Hercules and turns out they've been praying to the gods for years about having a child. But while they were talking, Pain and Panic transformed into snakes and tried attacking, but baby Hercules grabs them by their throats and started bullying them before throwing them away. Panic starts to panic, saying Hades is gonna kill them for failing to kill Hercules. But Pain says, you mean if he finds out? And Panic smiles, saying yeah, if it's good. Back on Olympus, Zeus led the gods to search for Hercules, but by the time they found him, it was too late, because Hercules was now mortal, so he couldn't go back to Olympus. So Zeus and Hera just had to watch from above as their son grows up on a farm among mortals. Yeah. I'm just kidding, bro. A few years pass and we see a young Hercules full of energy speeding towards the town market with this big ass stack of hay and his dad and donkey in the passenger seat. They arrive and bro duck a hole just from hitting the brakes. He then picks up the stack of hay, but his pops told him not to unload just yet. So he drops it and sends their poor donkey flying. You see, Hercules was finding it difficult to control his incredible strength. And as we are about to see, he was an outsider because of this. Anyways, he catches their donkey and his pops told him to stay put before leaving to handle business. Hercules peeps this man struggling with his vase, so he goes to help. And the guy was actually grateful, up until he found out it was Hercules before yanking it out of his hands, saying saying that he's fine. So Hercules steps outside and this round disc lands in front of him. Before this group of boys ran towards him, but they immediately stopped as soon as they realized it was Hercules. Hercules asks if they needed an extra guy to play with, but bro tells him they already had 5 while holding up 4 fingers, and then says they wanted to keep it an even number. Bro was about dumb as hell. But Hercules was smarter and tries to protest, but he snatches the disc from his hand before running off and making fun of him. He then walks over to this world to solve, but then the disc came flying in his direction again. He runs to catch it and he did, but he ends up crashing into this pillar, which made it unstable, about to collapse. Bro tried to fix it, but again, he's not able to control his strength, so he only ended up making it worse, starting a domino reaction at both ends. He runs around again trying to fix it, but we see the vase keeper holding onto his vases, spraying his store hose, and for a minute he actually did, up until Hercules ends up slipping and crashing into his store at top speed, successfully destroying the entire marketplace in the span of a few seconds. The people around the market gathered around to point fingers at him and call him names. His pops tries defending him, but the vase keeper tells him to keep that freak away from them before the crowd disperses. No Elizabeth. Later that day, Hercules was seated by his pops, and bro was feeling like an outsider and that he was meant to be someplace else. All he really wants was to be around people who appreciated him for who he is. Don't we all, brother? Don't we all? For what is life without... I'm just kidding, y'all. I am not smart or philosophical. I'm just a dumbass YouTuber. Anyways, he then does like every other Disney MC and sings a song, basically saying he wants to find out where he belongs and wants recognition and acceptance. This was one of my favorite Disney songs too. Younger me was really learning the lyrics just to sing along. He makes it back home and his parents tell him the truth about the fact that they found him as a kid and that he had this necklace with the symbol of the gods and his name. Hercules then gets excited, saying that he's going to go to the temple of Zeus and try to find answers. He thanks his parents for raising him and being the best parents he could ever ask for and all that sentimental stuff. And then the next day he embarks on his journey while continuing his songs. He makes it to the temple of Zeus and prays to him, and almost immediately a lightning bolt struck the massive statue of Zeus, bringing it to life. Zeus has been waiting years to speak to his son. He was now about to do that whole dramatic pause thing. He immediately spawned in after Hercules finished praying. Hercules was obviously freaked out at first and tries to hit the burners, but Zeus grabs him and tells him everything. The fact that he's his father and Hercules is really a god, but was stolen and turned mortal as a child, so now he can't return to Olympus. But he tells Hercules there is one way he could make it back to Olympus, which was to become a true hero and prove himself worthy. So Hercules gets fired up, but quickly realizes he didn't know the first thing about becoming a hero. Zeus then tells him that you have to find this movie's version of a Gojo, of a Kakashi sensei, of a... You get the point. And then Zeus summons Pegasus to help him on his journey. So now Hercules was fired up with a goal in mind. He rides Pegasus into the clouds to finish his song, and then we fast forward a bit. He finds the island where his sensei was and starts to walk around, and this place was gloomy as hell. But he hears some noises in the distance, so he goes to check it out. And turns out it was this group of tree nymphs, and this was the moment Hercules knew he was straight, cause bro immediately started smiling. He then peeps what appeared to be a goat trapped in the bushes, so he pulls it out only to find out it was a satyr. The noise he made ended up alerting the nymphs, so they had to make a run for it. Hercules then tells him he's been looking for a guy named Philatides. Oh hell no! Come cry, bro. Bro's name ends with titties. But the satyr tells him to just call him Phil, so this was our guy. Hercules gets all excited and ends up crashing bro's hand with his grip of death. He then tells Phil he's looking to become a hero and was hoping he could train him. But Phil walks off into his crib, saying he can't help. Hercules broke his door by accident, apologizing and asking why not. Phil tells him that he's retired, but Hercules tells him that he really needs to do this because it's his dream and asks Phil if he's never had a dream. Phil then tells him to come inside and started to tell Hercules about all the past heroes he's trained. And bro's CV was looking hella impressive because he's trained niggas like Odysseus, Theseus, Perseus, a lot of sis. But he says none of them could go the extra mile before revealing his greatest work till date, which was Hercules. Bro started glazing the fuck out of him, but then reveals his greatest weakness, which was his heel, hence the phrase Achilles heel. Phil then admits that he had a dream, and his dream was to one day train the greatest hero of all time. So great in fact that the gods would make a picture of him in the sky with the stars, and people would look up and say, hey, that's Phil's boy. But so far he's not had any luck, and so he's given up on his dream. Hercules tells Phil he's different from the others before dragging him outside to flex his strength, grabs this massive statue and then yanks it into the distance. Phil was surprised by this, and for a while he actually considered training him, but quickly changed his mind. Hercules tells him that he's the son of Zeus, and Phil burst out laughing. He started making fun of him and even started singing, but right as he was about to turn him down again, he got struck by lightning, so he peeped game and agrees to train him. The song continues as we get a montage of Hercules training to become a hero. and holy shit, bro was terrible, making rookie mistakes after rookie mistakes. But over the years, bro got better and older and muscular, and you know what? I think you get the point. Hercules felt like he was ready to take on a real challenge, and so Phil agrees and they make their way towards the city of thieves. But while they was up in the air, they had the damsel in distress, and without a second thought, Hercules makes a run towards the direction of the screen. They make it to land and then receive fine shit for the first time. Top 10 childhood crushes right here, bro. She seems to be in trouble with the river guardian, and Hercules didn't waste any time and goes in. He approached and asked the river guardian to release fine shit, but she tells him to mind his business and move along, which had Hercules mad confused. But Hercules stood 10 toes and tries pulling out his sword and got hit with a mean right uppercut. Phil tells him to get his sword, but bro ends up pulling out a fish. Fine shit was not impressed at all. The river guardian started laughing before hitting him with another right hook. Pegasus got mad and tries rushing him to help his mans, but Phil tells him he's going to have to do this on his own. He then yells at him to concentrate and use his head, and bro literally does just that, finally landing his first hit in this fight. He picks up fine shit and drops it off on this tree root before rushing to face the river guardian, and he was actually putting in work now. Phil was cheering him on the sidelines before noticing how bad Shorty actually was, so he decides to pick game real quick. But fine shit was not impressed and pushed him off. Don't be confident though, I gotta respect it. Hercules manages to defeat the river guardian easily, in fact. He then walks up to Phil, who was telling him about his mistakes and not to get distracted by the haze. But bro peeps fine shit washing her hair and immediately turns off his ears while walking towards her. Bro was trapped on that island for way too long without any females, so as soon as he saw fine shit for the first time, he immediately switched up on his day ones without a second thought. And shit, I would have done the same too. Like, bro, are y'all seeing this? She had me in a chokehold when I was younger, like I'm not even kidding. Disney back then was dedicated to raising an entire generation of straight people and also lesbians, if I'm keeping it real. Had my boy Hercules in a trance just off the first interaction. Like, she introduced herself as Meg and bro was stuttering, but they have a little convo before Hercules offers to give her a ride. But Pegasus wasn't fucking with her very much. She assures him she'll be alright though, so they fly off to Thieves. Meg watches them fly off before walking deeper into the forest, where we see Pain and Panic and then the Lord of the Underworld, Hades. He asks her how things went with the river guardian, but she tells him she was handling business when Wonder Boy came along, aka Hercules, and beat the brakes off him. Hades heard the name Hercules and immediately looked in the direction of Pain and Panic, realizing they didn't really kill Hercules like they were supposed to, so now the prophecy would come true. Bro absolutely loses his shit before crashing out, but Pain and Panic tells him that they at least made him mortal, so there's still time for them to take him out before the planets align. We cut to Hercules flying over Thieves, and Hercules is surprised by how big it is. And funny how bro called the city of Thieves the Big Olive, an obvious reference to New York, the Big Apple. The city had everything. Cars, traffic, crackheads trying to sell you stuff, like literally everything you can think of. And I'm not gonna lie, ancient Greece was kind of nice and peaceful, but the city of Thieves was not so lucky, facing one problem after the other. So Hercules offers to save the city and become its hero, but they flood him with a ton of questions like whether he stopped the natural disaster or saved the city. But he tells them no, so they start to walk off because he seemed like a fraud. Phil stood up for his mans though, and then Fatty over here starts to rage bait Phil. Hey, ain't you the guy that trained Hercules? Hey bro, remind me what killed him again? This was enough of Phil as he charges at him to give him the works. Hercules separates them, but then they walk off saying that they need a professional hero, not a wannabe. Hercules was feeling down. This was his old town all over again, but Phil assures him that he will get his chance. And just as he was saying that, we hear Meg in the distance. Hercules makes his way over to her and she tells him about two kids that got caught in a landslide. Hercules was excited about this and puts Meg on top of Pegasus before flying off. And the crazy part was he forgot all about his sensing, like They make it to the site and Hercules handles that no problem, and the crowd cheers just a little bit. And then the two boys climb up the stairs, and of course they were Pain and Panic, and this was all part of the plan. So as Hercules was feeling himself, they hear this terrifying sound coming from the cave, and it was a Hydra. Now the Hydra was a creature in Greek mythology that had a special ability to regenerate every time it cut off its head, so it was almost unkillable. But Hercules didn't know this yet. It starts attacking and Hercules was barely holding it off. It managed to catch him off guard and swallowed him. Everybody thought it was GG's, but Hercules manages to slice it from her den, and it all seemed over. But this was just the beginning. Remember what I said about its ability to regenerate? Well, it spawns in 3 more hairs, and now it was time for round 2. Hercules picks up his sword and continues slicing and slicing, and the Hydra just kept spawning in more and more heads until he manages to pin him to this mountain. But before they could finish him off, Hercules uses all his strength to smash the mountain so hard it cracks and releases a ton of rocks, crashing the Hydra and killing it. The crowd was thinking it was, well, GG's again, but Hercules frees himself from the Hydra's grip and the crowd starts cheering, having found their new hero. Hades was absolutely furious, and it's funny, but I'm now realizing that both their names start with an H. Yeah, I know, I'm dumb as hell. From that moment, on, Hades did his best to stop Hercules, sending in foe after foe, but each time Hercules took care of that easy, and Hades just got angrier. They even built him a statue and then some other merch like slippers, a credit card, a billboard, action figures. Like bro was now a full-on celebrity, and he didn't forget his folks back home, sending them a golden chariot and some vases with his face on it. After Hades tries everything he could, he was lost as to what to do next and was just raging while destroying Hercules' vases. But while he was having his rage moment, he peeps that Pain had on Hercules' slippers, and as if that wasn't bad enough, he also peeps that Panic was sipping on some Hercules smoothie. Like bro, imagine you being mad that you can't take out your number one up after trying everything you can, only to realize that your homies that are supposed to be on your side are happily supporting your set up by purchasing their merch. This would be like if Kim Von's associates started buying merch from NBA Youngboy, bro. That should be just that. I can't even imagine what Kim Von would do to that name. Hades absolutely loses it, and this scene had me dying. He only had 24 hours until the planets aligned, and he needed to get rid of Hercules. He then realizes that he's going at it all wrong and should have just sent Meg after him to find out his weakness, you know, on some Samson and Delilah type stuff. We then found out the reason Meg was even working for Hades in the first place, and turns out she once fell in love with some random guy, so deep in love that she even sold her soul to Hades to save the life of the guy. And what does he do to repay her? He runs off with some other chick. Like, oh nah, this gotta be the dumbest nigga of all time, cause how do you genuinely fumble Meg, bro? This incident made her learn a lesson, and she saw off men after that day. So Hades makes her a deal. If she could find out the weaknesses of Hercules, he will grant her freedom, the one thing she wants most in this world. We cut to Hercules, who goes to meet his father Zeus, feeling like after all his heroism, it was time he joined the gods on Olympus. But Zeus tells him that it wasn't time just yet, and that he has to become a true hero. Hercules was confused, but Zeus tells him it's something he's going to have to discover for himself before leaving. The next scene, we see the Hercules villa, and oh my god, bro, this nigga got motion. Like, gang, look at the size of this bitch. Bro was going on about his day getting painted while wearing a pelt, which oddly looks like Scar from Lion King. But Hercules was feeling down cause he was looking for answers and didn't know what to do. The artist got mad he was moving too much and destroyed the paint before slamming the palette in Phil's face. Phil was informing Hercules about his schedule, but Hercules asked him what's the point of it all. Just then a group of fangirls rushed in and started abusing him as if bro hasn't had enough. Phil manages to get them gone, and then we see Meg. I have no idea how she got in or how long she's been standing there. She invites Hercules on a date, and Hercules initially declines, but he agrees cause, come on, nobody's saying no to this. Just be real, bro. The next scene, we see them on a date and they're just having small talk. Meg seemed to have forgotten the mission though, so these two bears, which are actually Pain and Panic, tells it to stop fooling around and find out his weaknesses. She tries everything in the book to find out, but bro simply had no weaknesses. He then gets up to toss some rocks and ends up breaking the statue, which somehow made it better. The conversation then shifts from his weaknesses to them having a convo about human dishonesty and pettiness. Hercules tells Meg he doesn't think of her that way and thinks she's incredible. Bro came a long way from stuttering to now spitting up real game. I hope y'all was taking notes. The convo continues and things get intense. So intense in fact that they almost kiss. But this wasn't Aladdin. You're not getting a kiss on the first link. Phil and Pegasus pull up on them, and so Hercules had to go. He gives her a flower and a kiss on the cheek before riding out. And yeah, Shorty was skipping a few heartbeats. But while riding out, a tree branch knocks Phil off and he passed out. Back to Meg, and Shorty was battling with herself. She obviously liked Hercules, but also remembered what happened in a previous relationship. So how does she decide how to deal with everything? She sings a song, of course. The muses join her in a song, and she's basically going on this back and forth with them about her feelings. But by the end of the song, she realizes that she can't fight it and decides to give Hercules a chance. But guess who pulls up at that exact same moment? Yup, Hades. He asks her about his weaknesses and she tells him that she's done working for him, but then Phil wakes up and overhears their conversation, so he runs off to go warn Hercules. Hades reminds Meg that he literally has her soul, so she can't say no to him, but Meg informs him that Hercules truly has no weaknesses while smiling. But Hercules smirks and realizes that she's his weakness. The time for the planets to align is almost here, and we cut to Hercules doing his evening workout routine when Phil pulls up. Hercules had one date with fine shit, and now bro was on top of the world. He wasn't even listening to what Phil was saying. Meanwhile, Pegasus was dealing with his own problems as this female Pegasus pops out of nowhere to seduce him. Bro didn't question a thing and just follows it to this table where it splits in half. Some shit you see straight out of a horror movie before transforming into Pain and Panic, tying him up. Meanwhile, Phil was still trying to get through to Hercules, but he wasn't listening. He was just glazing Meg. Bro even said she was more beautiful than Aphrodite. I just know she's going to have beef with him when he returns back to Mount Olympus. So Phil had to literally scream out the truth that Meg was a fraud. But of course, Hercules was just like any other guy in love. he was blind to the truth, even when it was so obvious and everybody was telling them. Bro got all defensive about Meg, saying she could never betray him. But Phil kept going on and on until Hercules finally loses it and smacks him away into the equipment. Phil was obviously heartbroken and decided to leave. Hercules tries apologizing, but Phil had made up his mind, and so he says fine and then goes back to training. As soon as Phil leaves though, Hades pulls up, introduces himself, and tries to get a quick handshake. Hercules was obviously not in the mood, and bro already felt like Hades was shady off the first impression. So Hades tries to get him to make a deal with him to take a day off hero work so he doesn't interfere with his plans. Hercules was obviously not going to agree, but that's when Hades snaps his fingers and reveals Meg. She tries warning him, but Hades ties her up and then she vanishes again. Hercules tells him to let her go, no Central C, but Hades insists he takes a day off work and then he lets Meg go. Hercules thinks it over a bit, asking whether people are going to get hurt. Hades tells him it is a possibility because yeah, he's about to wage war and all that. But then he manipulates him with Meg, saying that isn't she the only one he cares about. So Hercules asks him to swear nothing would harm her. Hades agrees, saying that she'll be safe, otherwise he'll get his strength right back, and then asks them to shake on it. Hercules hesitates, so Hades was saying going once, going twice. And Hercules submits and shakes his hand and ends up losing all his strength due to the terms of the deal. But remember this deal for later. He then slams Hercules with his face and then reveals the truth about Meg before dipping out. It was finally time for the planets to align, so he goes to free the Titans and starts his war on Olympus. They start marching towards Olympus, but they was going the wrong way, so Hades had to point them in the right direction, and that's how we got this classic meme. He then stops one of the Titans and tells them to head for Thebes to deal with Hercules, just in case. We cut to Olympus and Hermes peeps the Titans marching towards them, so he speeds off to go warn Zeus. He tells him to sound the alarm and warn everyone to get ready for battle. The god of forgery then forges some lightning bolts for Zeus, and the others march into battle, led by Ares, Apollo, and the others. But yeah, these motherfuckers were frauds. All that time in peace made them soft as hell, cause they didn't do shit. Even the king of the gods lost his touch and did no damage. The other gods got captured by the wind titan, and then we cut Thebes, where the one-eyed titan was attacking. Everyone was asking where Hercules was. Meanwhile, back at his training ground, Meg was trying to talk him out of going into battle, cause he lost his strength and she was worried without it he's going to get killed. But bro didn't listen to her. I mean, why would he? She betrayed him in the first place. So she goes to free Pegasus and then flies off to see Phil. She tells him that the only person Hercules would listen to was him, and if he doesn't come back, Hercules was gonna die. Meanwhile, back on Olympus, the Titans break in and manage to trap the king of the gods in this magma and ice binding, and then Zeus discovered that Hades was behind everything. We cut to Hercules and bro was getting bullied and played by the one-eyed Titan. Phil and the others arrive and Phil talks him up, but while they was having their conversation, the Titan pulls up and grabs him. Hercules thinks fast and snatches this piece of wood with fire on it and then shoves it in its eye, before landing and tying him up with the rope, which ends up making it fall and hold on a damn minute. How high up are they? Cause this Titan was huge. Anyways, it falls off to his doom, but then the pillar behind Hercules breaks and was about to end him. But Meg runs in and shoves him out of the way before getting crushed beneath it. Hercules was infuriated and then rushes to lift it off, and his strength returns. Why, you might ask? Well, remember the deal from earlier. Hades swore no harm would come before Meg. During the 24 hours, Hercules lost his strength. Wait, that kind of rhymes. But due to the current situation, the deal was off, so his strength returned. Meg confessed she was in love with him and tells Hercules to go stop Hades before it's too late. Phil tells him to go and that he will take care of her. So Hercules mounts his trusty companion and then they ride out into battle. Back on Olympus, Zeus swore to deal with Hades once he was free, before getting completely sealed. Hades just sits on his throne, relaxed, and about to sit on some virgin mojito when Hercules pulls up. He first frees the frogs before weaving all the attacks from the Titans. Like, gang, I'm just on the road, bro. And then frees his popes. This had Hades literally boiling, and I'm not gonna lie, both the gods and Titans in this movie were frauds. Zeus gets a fresh badge of boats and then headshots this Titan before Hercules grabs the wind titan and uses it to absorb the other titans, and then spins around a little bit before releasing them into space where they explode. Wow. A mere mortal came in and did what all these other frauds and Zeus couldn't do. Hades then flies off while saying he still had one more thing Hercules was after, and Hercules remembered his fine shit, so he storms off riding full speed ahead. And just then we cut to the fates about to cut the thread of life of yet another mortal, Meg. Hercules makes it to her, but it was too late. Phil consoles him and tells him that there was nothing he could do, but Hercules was determined and says yes, there is. So we cut to the underworld where Hades was absolutely crashing out as usual, but Hercules breaks in with the Cerberus and demands Hades gives him Meg's soul. They walk over to the River of Death and Hades makes yet another deal with Hercules, saying if Hercules can manage to successfully retrieve Meg's soul from the River of Death, he will agree to let him take it, but if not, he'll be trapped in the river for all eternity. So they make the deal when Hercules dives in. Hades only agreed to the deal because he knew Hercules would die. But against all odds, as the Sisters of Fate try to cut his thread, it turns into gold, signifying that Hercules was now a god. This one act of selflessness was what he needed to prove himself worthy of being a god. Hades begins to rage again, but Hercules knocks his face in, literally. But he returns to try to mess with Hercules once more, but he went way too far, touching the soul of his beloved. So Hercules got pissed and knocked him into the river of death. We all know he's not dying because he's a god, and he's literally the ruler of the underworld. But this was satisfying to watch. Hercules returns Meg's soul when she comes back to life, and they were about to kiss when again they get interrupted. This time by Zeus, who invited them into Olympus. And remember how he was saying Hercules couldn't go there because he wasn't a god? Well, now Meg's there, and it didn't seem to be a problem. But hey, I can let that slide. They then celebrate Hercules and ask him to join them. But Hercules tells Zeus he loves Meg and would rather stay on Earth with her and save people. So yeah, Hercules became a demigod who lived on Earth. He got to start painting by the gods in the night sky. Phil accomplished his lifelong dream, and they live happily ever after, up until the next tragedy, which we won't ever know because there wasn't a second movie. But anyways, it was really fun making this because again, this was one of my favorite childhood shows with one of my favorite childhood crushes. So I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to leave a like and comment what other movies or TV shows or anime you'd like to see me cover in the future. Also, be sure to subscribe and put your friends onto this big content. I love you guys so much, and until next time, YC out.
This is the fight of our lives, and we're gonna win. Whatever it takes.
Listen to your mom.